People want long stories from me and some people like short stories. So here's what we'll do. This is the long version of the roommate story. The video directly after this one will be the short version of the roommate story. 2 years ago, I was living in a studio apartment in Boise, just me and my dog. And I was really loving it there until some unsafe events happened, and then I felt like I had to get out. And then around that same time, I met a girl with a dog the same age. So our two puppies played together really, really well. So we kept hanging out to let them play, and me and this girl were fast friends. We got along really well. We are going to call her B. So within the first few times of B and I hanging out, we decided that we wanted to live together, and that would be so good for us because our dogs could play all the time and we get along. So yeah, it just seemed like the greatest idea ever. B and I ended up finding a really nice apartment where we could have both of our dogs. It was like a luxury apartment. It was a cool place. It was expensive. I had to pay over $1,100 a month, and she was paying just under $1,000 because I had the master bedroom. And it was outside of Boise, which kind of sucked because it's a bit of a commute, but overall it was the best option we could find. And we were really excited about it, or at least I thought we were really excited about it until she didn't sign the lease. So I talked to B and I'm like, why are you not signing the lease? It's okay if you don't want to live with me, but I need to know that now because I don't want to be homeless and we are running out of time. And she was like, oh, no, that's not it. I do want to live with you. It's going to be so great. I just have been putting it off. I'll do it. And then she eventually did sign the lease. Within the first 2 days of being in our new apartment, we get a note on our door from our downstairs neighbor who says that we are ruining the community, that basically she doesn't want us there because our dogs are too loud because we left them and they barked while we were at the grocery store once. I immediately get nervous because I don't want to get kicked out of this apartment. And so what I do is eventually I start working in person, and anytime I'm not there, I make sure that my dog is in doggy daycare or with a dog sitter. B, on the other hand, leaves her dog in the kennel while she works, which is understandable. And luckily she works only part-time, so it doesn't have to happen a lot, right? Like that's 20 hours per week that the dog has to be in the kennel. But then every day after work, B would also go hang out with friends, and B would be gone for parties and just like not come home. And so eventually the dog is staying in the kennel for 12 plus hours a day. And when I'm not there, I can't let the dog out. And so the dog is howling and howling, and the downstairs neighbor is trying to get us kicked out because of it. And I am increasingly miserable because I'm having to work full-time, go to school full-time, and take care of two puppies, which the other puppy is not potty trained. And every time I told B, like, please stop letting your dog like poop and pee inside, I wasn't mad at the dog because it's not the dog's fault. It was B's fault because she would not let the dog outside when it needed to go outside. And on top of that, this list goes on, but one thing that drove me nuts is that she never paid her rent on time. I would have to front the cost that's over $2,000 for the both of us to pay all of these bills and then just wait for her to send me her part of it. And I'm like, why can't you just be responsible enough to pay on time? And I would ask her, like, is this a problem of not having money? And she was like, oh no, like I just didn't keep track of it. And I told her, like, if you need money, if this is a financial struggle, let's have a conversation about that. But she was adamant that that wasn't what was happening until a couple months later. So we've been living in the apartment for like 2 months, and now she's like, I can't afford to live here, I need to go. And I was immediately a little upset because I'm like, well, we did our budget and we signed a year lease, so what do you mean you have to go? But after that, I was like, you know what, this is a good thing because I am so stressed out with living with B. I can't keep watching this dog be neglected. I don't want to live in fear of getting kicked out of my home. The parties are too much for me. I'm just not like that much of a party person. There was so much going on. So I was like, that's okay, I'll find a new roommate. And I did. Within a couple of days, I had someone else like ready to move in, and then she decided to stay. Things get progressively worse. I'm trying to take care of two puppies, but this one puppy needs so much training and attention that I don't have when I'm going to school and work and I have my own dog. And the more that I play and care for this other dog, the less that B shows up. And so I'm like, well, I feel like I'm facilitating the neglect by taking over here. So B needs to take care of her dog, but then she didn't. And then I'm sitting by while this dog is neglected, and the apartment smells horrible from the constant accidents. And anytime B was home when there was an accident, she would just put the feces on the patio. just piles of it out on our patio instead of taking it out to the garbage. And she was having parties and having guys over that were unsafe, that made me feel unsafe, people I knew were abusive, and when I expressed my frustration, she was not happy with that. I knew I wanted out. I was miserable living there, but to buy out of the lease would cost me $3,500, and I absolutely didn't have that. I barely had money for my bills and having to randomly cover B's bills, so that was not an option. I just thought, like, I'm gonna have to figure out how to put up with this for an entire year. 6 months in, it's Christmas, and I go to my family's house and I win the lottery. And I immediately was like, this is my ticket out. I don't have to live in that miserable home anymore. I can buy my house. And I was just so relieved that I don't have to go back to that miserable place. I mean, I did, but only for a few weeks. I was like, I'm gonna buy a house as soon as I got back there, but I knew I couldn't tell B because I didn't trust her knowing that I had money. She had already been taking advantage of me. So I keep it a secret, but I do tell her, like, hey, I'm looking at buying a house. I tell her as soon as possible so that she has time to kind of think about who would take my place or what she would want to do. In the meantime, I was friends with one of my neighbors who was also looking to buy a house, and I was talking to her about that process, and I said how I won the lottery, so that's why I'm going to be able to buy one, and she was so happy for me. And then after a couple of weeks, I found the house that I wanted to buy, and I began that process, and I told B what happened. I was like, hey, I won the lottery, so that's why I'm buying this house, and I just want to make sure you're in a good situation, even though, you know, I've loved being friends. It's time for me to go. And then she was like, I know. The neighbor told me that you won the lottery a long time ago. And I was like, what do you want to do then? How about I get you a new roommate? And she's like, no, I refuse to live with anyone else. And I'm like, when you were gonna leave, I got a new roommate. I had someone lined up, and now I want to leave and you won't accept that. She's like, absolutely not. You will not have anyone live in here that I don't know. And then I started talking to friends and trying to find a friend to live there, and I found some like potential candidates, and she just was refusing everything. So I was like, please let me go. And she was like, well, you need to pay the full $3,500. And I was like, do you realize that even though I just won the lottery, all of that money is needed to give me the chance to buy a house? Like, why would we pay $3,500 when we could just get people to move in to replace us for free? So she refuses all of our free options. She refuses to live with anyone. She just wants me to pay the money so that she doesn't have to do any work and she can move out. But she doesn't want me to do it immediately because she needs time to find a new place. So she says that she will pay the full rent for the apartment for a month if I pay the full buyout fee. And that was the only option I had to get out of there. I was like, you are going to destroy the apartment while I'm gone, because like, it's bad now, but imagine if I'm not there cleaning up after that dog and you're having all these parties. Like, I cannot have that put on me. So I had her get my name off the lease, and then I put the full amount of the buyout fee in a bank account. And our agreement, the contract that we signed with the apartment complex, was that I would be off the lease immediately, and then B would pay the buyout fee on the 15th of the following month. Now, the account that had the money in it was a shared account, and B said, hey, can I transfer this out? And I was like, yeah, you can, but just so you know, all of your bills are automatically coming out of this account because that's how I set it up for us, because you didn't set up anything. And she was like, okay, I'll just leave it in there. So I get out, I move into my house, and that money is in our shared account, and the 15th of the month passes. Nothing. She doesn't actually use the money that I gave her for the buyout. I don't fully understand what her plot was, but the money that she got out of me, she didn't use for the buyout as the contract stated. So I took half of it back. I left the other half because I felt too bad.